Good afternoon, YouTube. DutyRon back again with another video. And this afternoon, today, I'm going to talk to you about Hart Island, the New York City property. It's a island right off of the Long Island Sound where homeless and unclaimed persons who die in the city of New York within the 5 boroughs are interned and buried. And there's a lot of talk about just maybe 3 or 4 days ago. Hello, Cup of Joe, Paisley Dreams, Baby Blues, Froggy is in the building. There was a lot of talk on the news about, I don't know if you guys heard, but there was a lot of news coverage that the city was going to start to do burials in parks in the city. This is what they were referring to. It's not a park. It's an island out in the Long Island Sound off of the Bronx. It's actually located in the Bronx. Hello, Laura Bruno. Thank you for joining. Thanks for joining, guys. So I hope everyone's doing well. I don't know if anybody heard about this, but I'm going to do a full-fledged live to explain what goes on and what Hart Island is used for. And it's been in existence for a long time. Cup of Joe, Joey Brooklyn, good to see you. It's right off of the Bronx out in the Long Island Sound. And Hart Island is definitely a very sad place. But it is a place where the New York City Department of Corrections, they run it. It's going to be taken over by the Parks Department, I think, next year. But the New York City Department of Corrections does burials for homeless people, unclaimed people who die in the city of New York. They are all buried there. Hello, John. Good to see you. Gemma's Grace Journey, thank you for coming. Yeah, I have inside the, on my thumbnail, I have an aerial shot of it. But they do the burials with as much dignity as possible. It's not like a place where they're just dumping bodies. They are mass graves. And they are, if you look it up, when I do the live, I'll go into details on it. But they dredge out big, long dredges, and I think it's like four stacks high of bodies, and then they do a mass burial. But it's not what got out and what leaked out into the news was they were saying that. You know, everybody who dies from coronavirus in New York City is going to be buried in the park, in that they refer to it as a park. It's not a park. It's not even accessible to the public right now. So if you have let's just say somebody dies and all of their siblings and all of their family have already died. Let's say someone has no family left and there's nobody to claim their body. They have to give the person a burial. They have to rest that soul. So the city of New York waits 2 weeks, 14 days, and if nobody claims the person, the deceased, then they do the burial at, they call it Potter's Field. I'll just give you a little background on it. The island was first publicly used as a training ground during the United States Colored Troops in 1864. So it was used for the United States Colored Troops in 1864. Since then, Hart Island has become a location of a Union Civil War prison camp. It was used as a Union Civil War prison camp in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and a psychiatric institution, a tuberculosis sanatorium, and a Potter's Field with mass burials, a homeless shelter, a boys' reformatory, a jail, and a drug rehabilitation center have all been housed and all been used on Hart Island. There was talk that they wanted to make an amusement park there and other structures, but that never came to fruition. During the Cold War, Nike defense missiles were stationed on Hart Island. The island was intermittently used as a prison and a homeless shelter up until 1967. And the last inhabited structures were abandoned in 1977. So since 1977, all the structures on that island, you see several buildings on that island from the aerial shot. They've all been abandoned since 1977. The island is now serving as a city Potter's Field. They call it Potter's Field. It's run by the Department of Corrections up until 2019, where they actually voted to transfer jurisdiction to the Parks and Recreation Department. So the Parks is going to take it over, but it says here in the information that the island has more than 1 million people buried there. There's more than 1 million people buried on Hart Island since the first decade of the 21st century. And now there's fewer than 1,500 burials a year. Burials on Hart Island include individuals who were not claimed by their family members, as I said, or did not have private funerals. The homeless and the indigent, and mass burials of the diseased victims of the AIDS epidemic are also buried on that island. Hello, Mahid. Welcome in, Nabul. Thank you for joining. Access to the island is restricted by the Department of Corrections, as I said, which operates infrequent ferryboat service and imposes strict visitation quotas. Burials are conducted and performed by inmates of Rikers Island. So the Hart Island Project is a publicly funded charity that is founded by visual arts Melinda Hunt. She's a very well-spoken out advocate for Hart Island, and she's trying to make the burial records available to family members for people who are interned there. You know, and so to make this more relevant, when we're talking about coronavirus victims and people in the city of New York that die, if they are not, this is what's unfortunate, if they are not able, say if their family, say if somebody, God forbid, dies and they're in the city of New York and you cannot get a funeral director to come and pick up and pick up the body and do a funeral service in a 14-day period, I'm sure that they're giving extensions to people who really want to get it done and just can't get a funeral director there. But they're saying, and I don't know if it's happened, I'm sure that it probably has, that if you can't get someone to come and pick up your loved one, they will mass burial your loved one at Hart Island. That's the plan. And then you'll have to have them exhumed and reburied in a you know, at a proper cemetery or things of that nature. I don't know that this is going on in a mass kind of way. I don't know. I think that there would be coverage if it was done, if thousands of people's loved ones were being removed. If you could show good faith that you've hired a funeral director to come and it takes more than the 2 weeks, I don't think that they'll quickly just discard the person's remains and have them buried in Potter's Field over on Hart Island. I believe that they will give, if you show that you have hired a funeral director and it's going to take past that 2 weeks, I think they will. This is for people who are homeless, people who don't have any family. In other words, a person dies, they try to make a notification to the next of kin. Hi, Donnie Color, how are you? They try to make notification to the next of kin and they can't get anybody. In those cases, if you can't reach somebody in a 14-day period, which is a reasonable amount of time that someone should come forward, then they're probably doing that. Hi, Gail B, good to see you. Thank you to everyone who's joining. Thank you to all of my channel members, my Patreon supporters, my moderators. You guys are awesome. And thank you to everybody being here. Exploring Ginger, thank you for joining. So Potter's Field is just, you know, it's a place that we've all, anybody that lives in New York knows about Potter's Field. Anybody that lives outside of New York, if you Google Hart, H-A-R-T, Hart Island, if you Google H-A-R-T Island, you'll come up with a bunch of information. And another bit of information as well is after Hurricane Superstorm, Hurricane Sandy came, there was a lot of erosion at that island, and a lot of the remains that's mass buried there were leaching out into the water of the Long Island Sound. And on the shore leading up to Hart Island, there's photographs of skeletal remains and human remains that were floating and actually coming ashore in Coney Island and in other places that border where the shores are, on land over in Brooklyn and in Queens and in Staten Island, not Staten Island, in the Bronx. So there was numerous documented cases of skeletal remains, bones of the deceased leaching out because of erosion from Superstorm Sandy, from Hurricane Sandy. And the Army Corps of Engineers were called in there. I think it was a $5.8 million federal government grant that was approved to make a wall to hold in the land from erosion from storms. And it was gruesome to see that sight, to see the human remains on the beach. There's actually photographs. If you search this and you search Hart Island beach erosion after Hurricane Sandy, and you'll see actual. If you suffer from PTSD, don't go and look at these photos. But there was human bones, skull, and human bones photographed by the news media, by drone footage, by helicopter footage of deceased that were mass buried in erosion. It's very sad, and they did what was right. The federal government stepped in, FEMA stepped in, and they cleaned it up. But at the end of the day, what a horrible, you don't wish that on your worst enemy. Now, granted, a lot of the people who are buried here are, homeless and or have no family, but that doesn't make that obviously right. That's a horrible situation. You don't ever want to see that happen to even your worst enemy. It's really sad. But it is what it is. And I will do a full live on the Hart Island story. So I don't want people that are outside of New York that are hearing the news about bodies and people are being buried in city parks. That's not true. That's not true at all. But definitely Hart Island, there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of, it's sad. But what happens if someone is homeless or someone does not have next of kin or family and they die in the hospital or on the street? They need to be given a proper burial. So the city's been providing that for the homeless and people who do not have surviving family for many years. I mean, this is no secret. I've actually picked up inmates from jails and brought them from other jails back to Rikers Island, or picked them up from Rikers Island, and the inmates have told us, yeah, I was on that detail. And the only reason they would volunteer for that detail is to get for the day, get out of jail. And it was a hard job for them to do, but they wanted to just get out of jail to get fresh air every day, and they were on that job. I said the same thing, Vintage Gal. I don't know why they don't do that, but they use the island. Hart Island has over 1 million souls buried there. There's over 1 million souls buried on Hart Island. And you would think that cremation would be a better option, but I don't know. Apparently it's not. So this has been going on for a long time, and there's a lot of people that are thankful for this. And there's a lot of people that are not thankful. It's both ways. I'm sure religion comes into play, but I just wanted to touch. The surface on this. Over 1 million souls are interned on Hart Island, and the number they are using it. In fact, I did see a confirmation that there are people who have died of coronavirus that are that have been already buried there on Hart Island. Hello, Christina's Adventures. Thank you for joining. Thank you to everyone for being in here. I appreciate that. With cremation, you will still have the incinerated bones. What do you do with that? I think this is the most, for the city of New York, this is the most dignified way to lay somebody to rest. Hello, Dano. Book 'em, Dano. Dano up in Canada, good to see you. Thank you for joining. I think it's the best way, because what do you do with everybody's remains? You know, what do you do with them? You can't throw them out. So this is the most dignified way to do it, I feel. Good to see you, Dano, from up in Canada. Long time no see. Good friend of mine from Periscope. I hope you're doing well. Yay, you noticed my comment. I've seen you before. Thank you. Yes, it is very sad. ASMR eating my way. It is. Faithful One, thank you for joining. Let me just do a quick scroll to see who I missed. If I missed anybody, hello, thank you. My name is Christina. Thank you so much for clarifying that. It was hard for me to figure that one out, but thank you for giving me that information. I appreciate that. So to each and every one of you that are in here, hello, SA, South Africa, hello, Sunshine, good to see you. Winky, thank you for being in here. Thank you. Carolina Girl, thank you for being here. Red Like Wine, I appreciate everybody coming in. I'll do a full live with some video that I'll show. J-Dubs, I'm saying that the news misreported it. There's no mass burials in any park. This is not a park. You know, people think when you hear me out on this, everybody. The media sent out a story that the Parks Department was going to start burying people in New York City parks. That is the furthest thing from the truth. This is an island that is surrounded by water in the middle of the Long Island Sound. Okay, the Hart Island has been in operation for quite a few decades, and mass burials, there's over 1 million interments. It's a cemetery, okay? It's a cemetery, and that's where the bodies would be buried, in a cemetery, not in a park. So yes, the news did misreport that, and a lot of people had the wrong information. So it is what it is, folks. So you know, they're quick to get a story out, and people, I was getting messages on Facebook left and right from people. Is the city parks department going to be DutyRon, are they burying people in our parks in the city? I was getting that, you know. So it's crazy. It's crazy. Fake news is everywhere, you know, and people report, you know, news employees are quick to get out a story because they're under deadlines and their bosses want to get the message out. You know, the bosses want to get their message out. So mass burials have been going on Hart Island for many decades, and it's not just taking a person who has a family and loved ones that can have a proper burial for them. It's for the people who cannot or do not have family and do not or homeless and do not have anybody to claim their remains. If we are lucky enough to pass away and have great-grandchildren or grandchildren, or a spouse still alive to claim your remains, then we are lucky if that happens. If it doesn't happen, then somebody has to take over and do it. So that's what it is when you look at it, when you look at the big picture here. But you know, this is something that needs to be done, and it's being done with dignity. People aren't just being thrown in mass graves. It's being done with dignity. So anyways, much love and respect from my house to yours. I got to get back into the office. I'll talk to you guys soon. Look for a live from me that'll go into detail on this, and I'll give you some video, and I'll give you some news articles and data on Hart Island. But look it up. A lot of love and respect from my house to yours. God bless the world. God bless the United States of America. And God bless each and every one of us here in this video. I send in you a lot of love and a lot of positive vibes. Stay safe. I'm reporting and signing off from New York City, the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic here in the United States. Much love and respect from DutyRon. Thank you for joining. God bless.